Hello, hello, hello. We are on the air. Yes. We got some really ungodly loud music playing here. Anyway, it's me, Lord Brand, for another episode of Ben's House. And someone has long waited to who's ever had a good time. I don't know how many interviews now, maybe like at least hundreds.
Oh, wow.
Believe it or
Fantastic.
not. It's kind of crazy.
Well, I'm glad to be a part of this.
You are such an important part of
diaspora.
this story.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you. Well, just in general, just like chatting with you and then being able to be on this illustrious broadcast.
Amen. So, well, listen, I
Yes.
want to tell the audience a little bit about DJ Heather. So,
Sure.
and I'm not going to do it justice. So I'm going to let Heather talk about herself. But I was going to start with an intro to say that I've known Heather for over 30 years now.
Easily, yes. Yes.
It's just, you know, if you're a student and you're a young person listening to this, enjoy your youth because it goes very fast. Because I was in my 20s, maybe later 20s, you were in your early 20s. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
probably
I'm
20.
aging us,
Yeah,
but
that's
it's
okay.
sad,
You know what they say about the crap.
Come on now.
Pretty darn good.
I think so.
I think so too.
Anywho, yeah, no, I think, I'm trying to remember the first time I met you. I can't remember which club it was, because we saw each other in a lot of different clubs.
You're absolutely right. It could have been a litany of them. It could have easily been
I think it was Red Dog.
Red Dog or Betty's or I don't know. Could have been Elbow Room,
Yeah.
Lower Links,
All those,
Rainbow.
what an era.
Yeah, we were very fortunate to experience the city,
Yeah.
different scenes, etc. At that time, I think it was just a confluence of so many different things literally popping at the same
It sure
time.
was.
It was really incredible.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think of that era when people ask what kind of music I do, and I say I do everything. You know, kind of known as a house music DJ.
Yes.
One point I was a hip hop DJ.
Yeah. Same.
And then but we kind of did this what we call now open format,
True.
which was you play what you feel like.
Also coming from that background, you were
Yeah.
able to adjust and do things on the fly. You kind of had a nice repertoire of stuff that you could pull from. DJ setting or format or how dance music or hip hop or what have you, down tempo, is structured. So you can, but off the top of your head again, being able to just improvise in the moment and play stuff you've never played before, but then also be able to make it your own in that moment because you just have the, not confidence, but the ability to kind of just work in that environment, for lack of a better way of saying it.
I agree, all that. And I forgot to do our station identification, so let me get that in now.
Okay.
So you're listening to WNUR 89.3 Evanston, and FM NHD1 Evanston, Chicago. Y'all, I had a busy day. I had some fun earlier today with the Choose Chicago team. They're sort of the tourism center, but the mayor was there and all kinds of really cool people. And they had me working, but Choose Chicago is going to have the big conference, a big international conference is going to be here next year. So everybody's prepping for that. But Heather, you were born not in Chicago. You're from Brooklyn.
I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York.
What part of Brooklyn were you in?
Bedside, Crown Heights.
Okay.
And then, but basically I've been here since I was 7, as we talked about a little bit before. So obviously my parents and I moved here when I was 7.
What brought y'all to Chicago?
My dad, he was getting a new job at Procter & Gamble. And so, and my mom was a housewife at the time, and she was also going to school. And so she's like, well, I guess we're going to Chicago. And I remember it was back in the mid-70s, so you didn't have terminals. You had like little stairs that you get off the plane and you'd walk down. And I remember I experienced the hawk for the first time because it was middle of January, and I remember wearing like a little like skirt and some shoes, whatever, because you dressed up at the airport.
Yes, you sure did.
Yes, ma'am. And then as soon as we got off on that little ledge, the cold I've never experienced. And granted, I've experienced cold, but this literally hit different. And it always left an impression on me about my first experiences being in the Midwest. And subsequently, grade school, high school, eventually led me to California, where I went to school for a couple of years because my uncle went to school out this little school called Whittier College. Super small Quaker school. My grandparents were out there as well.
Quaker school.
Yes.
Okay, what's that about?
It was kind of like an independent, smaller university. I think the total number of students was the equivalent of my graduating class from Evanston. So yeah, and moved out there, came back, and then kind of started my life in like '89. But I mean, you know, being in the studio, this is the second time I've been in this space, and it was a pretty influential part of my life growing up in this part of the city, as well as just Chicago in general. Radio being incredibly important. Chance to explore, hear new records, just hear new shows, and it wasn't just about hip hop or house. It was just, you know, new wave, rock, ska, everything. So I've always been a music nerd.
I know. I can't wait to sort of dig into that a little bit more too.
Yes.
But I'd love to hear more about, so you grew up in this, this is sort of your backyard, where we are is in Evanston, Chicago. Thank you, Daryl, for tuning in. Hey, what's up, Leslie? So what was that, you know, I'm from the South Side. I grew up in Inglewood. I was up Inglewood and in Morgan Park. And so, yes, it was an interesting neighborhood.
Yes.
But what was it like being in this area, growing up here? Because I'm guessing most Black people are from the South Side or the West Side. Yeah. Especially if you were talking about the 70s, you know, that's the era where you came. So how was that growing up in this area? Well,
you know, there's also a really strong Black contingent of people who called Evanston home.
That's
you know,
true.
the whole Great Migrations lineage to it. There's lots of Black history that's part of Evanston. And I always think of Evanston as being incredibly Chicago adjacent. They are like, you know, woven together. So I really didn't feel like I was in the suburbs necessarily, because I could literally just ride my bike and boom, I'm in the city. Oh yeah, easy breezy. But growing up here was, I wouldn't say it was utopian, but it was just different because the level of tolerance here was quite incredible. And the reason why my parents chose this as opposed to moving to the city, because my mom actually wanted to move out south. And my dad was like, well, let's stay north because it'll be closer to the office, that kind of thing. So she was really pulling for the south side, and he wanted the north side. But what brought us here was basically District 65 schools. It was like I really feel really confident in that, and then that's pretty much the reason why. So it provided a lot of opportunities that I may or may not have gotten in different schools, but this at the time they felt that this was a choice for us, and it worked out great. Like no complaints, and even through the course of my education as a kid, there's one point where I was not happy even personally with middle school, and I was like, Mom, I wanna try something new. So I went, even though there was a school literally 2 minutes away from my house, I decided to go to King Lab, which was kind of like a newer charter school in the city, or in Evanston, or just outside Evanston. And it was a choice that I made that I felt prepared me for going to high school, and high school was fantastic because at ETHS.
ETHS, Evanston Township?
Yes, and that at that particular school, it was not even a question about going to college. It was just like, this is what you're going to do. AP courses were at your fingertips. Computer labs, like all this stuff. It was like there was no question of like not going to college. It was just like everyone talked about. This is what you're going to do. And for me, that was great. And also, you have parents who are.
I was going to say, you have educated parents,
exactly.
So there's an expectation.
Exactly. I mean, my dad was a West Pointer, so it was just like that was my whole. I was for sure going to go to West Point up until my, I think, sophomore year. And I was like, wait a minute, maybe
military school. You want to know something funny? I worked at West Point.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I didn't work at the school. There's a hotel called the Hotel Thayer that's on the campus of West Point. This is in upstate New York. That's about an hour north of New York. And I worked in that hotel for probably 7-8 months, and I got to know West Point very well.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. So there's good and, West Point.
So there's a lot of privilege.
A lot of privilege, exactly. And that's part of the experience that my dad had, because he was one of the first of 9 that moved from where he was in California to go to school and at West Point. So it was a major deal for 9 Black students at that time. So so I mean, life changed, but I'm really fortunate for my parents to have found this particular place. And every time I come back, even driving, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I remember this. And it just instantaneously feels like home. It's like it's just comfortable.
You still have family in the area?
No, I don't actually. My mom passed about 12 years ago. That's okay. And then my dad's out in California now, and then but pretty much I'm it with my family here, and then there's cousins and stuff distant sprinkled out. But pretty much it. Yeah.
You know Yorba Linda? You know that?
Yeah.
There's a lot of West Point people from Yorba Linda.
Yeah, yeah.
What was that all about?
I don't know. That is,
people are like, what are we talking about on the show? All right, so well, listen, we're learning more about DJ Heather than I ever knew. See, this is the value of these conversations.
Yes, and it also shows the common thread that you'd be surprised that people have, like just like the degrees of separation get shorter and smaller.
I will tell you this: if you ever feel like you want to visit Hotel Thayer in West Point, it's actually a beautiful old hotel. It's very ornate, it's right on the Hudson River.
Yes,
it's overlooking all this beautiful foliage. And
I'm sure I have pictures of my my parents when they were dating and stuff, and there's like pictures of my dad's graduation, and it's all part of that experience, like pictures of the lake or on the Hudson, excuse me.
Yeah. Good deals. All right, so I want to skip a little bit ahead.
Sure.
There's so much to talk about, Heather. We don't have enough time, so we'll call it part 1.
I can take it. Let's go.
You know how that works. Trick you into coming again.
Yeah, let's do it.
I don't know, but we got some music going. I'm gonna take that. Oh, sounds good. Is that you? I think that's you.
I don't know.
So. One thing so many things I admire about you, and I remember when I first met you way back in the early 90s, I was like, Heather has a certain kind of hunger, for this music and for what we're doing, and I could just kind of see it was sort of like this, I could just tell that it was inside of you,
Yes.
And I always admired that because I'm not always all in with stuff. Like I do so many things, I'm kind of like, I'm all in for a minute, and I can do this all in.
Right.
But you were just very focused.
Yes.
And talk about that. I would love to hear more about sort of what made you feel that way. And I want to go back to the beginning.
Sure.
it was beginning for me when I met you.
Yeah.
So what brought you into, like, we'll get into DJing, but
Sure.
like this kind of love of the music and wanting to be in the center of it?
Well, I don't know if it was center per se, because I
Yes.
think we grew up in an era, or grew up as DJs or what
Yes.
have you, where DJ culture isn't the same as it once is now.
That's true.
It felt very small, insular,
Yeah.
dare I say, like a club, because you almost knew all the DJs
Right.
regardless of the music that they spun. So it'd be like, yeah, the circle was small. So if you went to a restaurant, if you went to a record store, if you went to a club, you knew all the DJs, and then you just knew the friends of the DJs, and then you knew the boyfriends, you knew the mamas, you knew all the adjacent, the drama, exactly, the adjacent families. Again, those concentric circles or degrees of separation. So, but as it pertains to DJing or having that focus, I think the focus really came into play once I was able to get my skills up to another level by having turntables, and I can express myself in the ways I'd always thought about programming music.
Right, yeah.
But I never had a vision per se of being a DJ. I was always a DJ as a person who shared music with friends, so I would make like mixtapes, but they were compilations, they weren't mixed.
Yeah, yeah.
Recording mixes off the radio, so of course many of us listened to BMX, so I was that girl that was like doing homework and like had my tiny realistic boombox, and I put in my Tone Master tape from Walgreens, and then, you know, hit record when I could while I was doing my homework.
Right.
So, you know, you fast forward through college, and I was managing a radio station at the time in California, come back here, and I'm still sharing music, where the restaurants I'm working at, this one place where I was literally a waitress, and I would just make mixtapes to play on shift. So I'd open the restaurant and I'd play stuff. So it was really about being a music fan from that perspective, but not really about being a DJ and quote unquote wanting to be the center. It was more like just sharing the stuff I liked, and that was kind of the genesis of DJing for me, or sharing music, but it wasn't a DJ career. I'd never thought of that as being part of my life at all.
I could see that, and now that you say it, you're right. When I think about that time, you know, 80s and 90s, you know, DJs were kind of like staff. You know,
Absolutely.
There's the bartender, there's the DJ, there's the guy who works the door. You know, people who cleaned up.
Yeah.
You're kind of part of the team.
Totally, and it was just like, and if you could make, you were all in concert, for lack of a better term, when you came in to work your shift. So we come from the school. Many of us do a certain era where, just like the bartenders, bar backs were setting up the bar, we were in there too. So it was like you would learn how to build a night, not be aggressive for your friends who were working the bar too, because you had a pacing of the night.
Absolutely.
So they would be like, you know, there's no need to quote unquote bang it at 9:59 when people are cutting, you know, during their side work, cutting lemons and stuff like that. So you learned how to program, and they also learned how to appreciate DJs and which people that they liked musically, or like personality wise. They might, you know, sometimes people play great music, but they really didn't like them. There was like, and vice versa. So you created relationships with staff, relationships with bar owners, managers, etc. And so you have this camaraderie, because you were working all week or a couple of times a week, and now it's very transient.
It is. I think that's one of the downsides of having so many DJs. So many. Because you feel compelled to like want to put people on and want to like support. And so it's like, okay, well, how many DJs can I fit into a night?
Right.
And it doesn't allow for that kind of storytelling that you're describing. And you know, when younger people will ask me for advice, and I get it. You know, I'm from a different era.
True.
But what you just described was the way that I learned. Was that, you know, I had a night, and maybe there might have been one other DJ, but often it was me, from 9 o'clock to 5 in the morning, or 9 to 3. And so you learn, this is what you play at this time, this is how you do this, and you're paying attention to the staff. Because you're playing for them too. You know, and it really does help you, so that if you are on a lineup, but you're playing at 10, you're not playing what should be played at 1 o'clock in the morning.
For sure,
You're
and
building for the next person.
absolutely, and I think that's sometimes missing because we're, again, in this era where you're trying to accommodate so many different tastes and flavors
Right.
and put people on, et cetera.
Mhm.
And they have an hour to do their thing, but that hour they wanna show everybody what they can do
Right.
instead of really being able to like realize where you are in the night and how it's programmed, because people are putting you on and maybe they're putting you on at 9 o'clock or 10 to see what you can do and see if you can handle that place. And then as the night progresses, the type of DJ or type of time
Yeah,
or
yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
You're playing for the night or time of night and being aware of that. But now I think, again, because of so many people to accommodate, there's less room for that. And also when you have so many people trying to make an impression, they're trying to make it in that moment at 10 o'clock as opposed to thinking about the the sum of its parts as opposed to just what's going on.
And you can make I think if you're
You can.
if you're skilled, you can still make an impression
Absolutely.
by playing the appropriate music to open up a night. So
Right.
DJ Alicia said, "Hey girlfriend," she said, "Facts."
Facts.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree. Thanks
But,
for checking us out.
but to that point, I just want to interject is that one of the times I was able to play at a bigger club when Fabric London just had opened, I think it was the last 1 or 2 years. Tuned in or dialed into their club that it was precious enough to say, we appreciate you, we're honoring you by having you play at our club, but you're not peak time. We need to see what you can do. So we fly you all over, you get a hotel, congratulations, and you're gonna open. And see how you open. And then you build a relationship with them and you're brought back and then they put you in different spaces. And that is them wanting to see what you can do and respecting the spaces and also respecting the curation that they had done for so long because you're not playing. They really want to see what you can do. And being invited is a big deal, so really take it to heart that you're being invited. So that's just my
I love that. We're learning a lot. I hope you guys are learning as you're watching because she's been everywhere. So speaking of everywhere, I want to talk about some of those initial clubs. We were talking a little bit beforehand about Wicker Park.
Yeah. So
Wicker Park was such a cool community in the 90s. There was just this kind of rawness to it and lots of possibilities. A lot of loft spaces and young people who were like owning their own spaces.
Yeah.
And that was kind of cool. That's how we met at one of those mini clubs back then. But you started spinning, I think I read an Artful Dodger.
Yes, so that was one of those Wicker Park clubs, or Bucktown technically.
Yeah.
And that was a chance, again, it was happenstance, because I love using that word, can't use it often. So I made mixtapes or compilation tapes, and I was playing one at a restaurant. My friend from high school, Matt Adele, who I also was working with at Wax Tracks when I was worked in production and shipping, then moved to production management, that kind of stuff. So, but he heard a mix of mine that was just a compilation. He's like, hey, you might want to try playing some cuts at Artful Dodger. And so I went in on a Thursday, and the guy, Brian, liked what I did, had me back on a Friday, and then subsequently Saturdays, and I was there every Saturday for many, many months. And what it taught me was, again, how to program. I built a following, etc. But again, it was all the DJ stuff was in adjacent or parallel to everything else I was doing, working for record labels, production companies, distribution, record stores, all of that stuff. And again, they were just like things I was doing in tangent or in tandem. But again, not the DJ quote unquote dream. But in Wicker Park, there was that opportunity for spaces. So it was with smaller bars, but then you had loft spaces and you had clubs that eventually developed. So it was like a breeding ground for so many things happening at the same time. It was pretty wild. And it was literally the Wild West because not a lot of people were, going west of Western on
That's
the
true.
north side at that time.
That's true.
So it's like, wait, how do I get up there? I have to transfer at Washington,
Yeah.
walk through the tunnel, and then I can get off and, get to the blue line and then exit at Damon. And then it was just crazy
That's
raw, dark.
I loved it.
I loved it. The kid,
Yeah.
people I knew were broke. I was broke. It was a big deal to move from, I was staying on the north side, and I was like, I can afford this $50 extra to move into this loft space. Yeah. And I had a loft space and I could walk to work, and that saved me money. And I was, sleeping in all my clothes because we didn't have heat. Like, it was real. It was real, but it was amazing, and it really made me who I am now as a DJ person, all those things. And I remember. And so I would bring my records all the way down to the bottom floor, go to the front of my loft, look down the street, wait for my bus. If I could see my bus, run downstairs, pick up my records, go to the corner of North and Western, wait for the bus to come, get on the bus with my cuts, and then get off on the six corners and cross, and then get into the club. And then I could take a cab home because I made some money for the night, but that's how I had to do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I remember those days too. And,
Yes.
I was scratching.
Yeah.
And that's when, you did 3-4 residencies a week.
Yes.
Because you had to.
You had to.
It's like you're going to try to live off of it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, again, the different. Because I was waitressing too.
To work on this. I was like,
Yeah.
and I was taking care of my niece at the time.
Oh, crazy.
So she was like a teenager, and like, so now I got to support a child.
Right.
And back then, you're making $50, $100, to play for the night.
Yeah.
That's all you make, because you're like staff.
Yeah. Oh, and then I was working at Gramophone too. Eventually, because G Most, another.
G-Most.
For the turntables. So he was leaving, and he suggested
They weren't good turntables.
They were, for what they were, changed my life. Belt driven jams, amazing. So with G-Most leaving, he was like, "Yo, they need a hip hop buyer. I suggested that you could do it." I was like, "Okay, let's go." Yeah. So I was buying hip hop at Gramophone, and I remember kids would call like, "You got this cut?" Like, hold on, they put put somebody on hold, and then I get the call like, "Yeah, there's a call on line 2, somebody's in a question," and I pick up, "Hello, can I help you?" Yeah, so they put me on hold. I'm trying to find this record, and I'm like, "It's me. You want to talk to?" Like, I can't even tell you how many times.
Well, because you're a woman.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, and then eventually people got used to it, and they were like, "Where's G at?" and all that stuff. I'm like, "It's me. He's gone. I'm the hip hop buyer." Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't even get into the woman part of it.
It goes without saying, I think.
Especially in hip hop.
Yes.
Oh my God, the stories we could tell, I'm sure.
That would have to be part
That's
of
that's another show, but I mean, luckily I had enough love, but I got a lot of shade too.
Yeah.
Because it's whatever. It's shady business. There's a lot more men. There's a lot more men in hip hop than the DJ sphere.
True.
I mean, a few women all over in the 80s
Absolutely.
and 90s, but in hip hop, it was like, you were it,
Yeah.
That was it.
That was it. Yeah, I think.
I think that me and you were doing it.
There was one other.
Early 90s?
In the early 90s, one other person that I remember, and I can't think of her name right now, but she was part of like a crew that Jesse wanted to put together to do radio shows and stuff like that. But for known DJs, yes, I think you and I were at the time, without being really affiliated with radio in any sort of with any sort of regularity. I think we were in the streets.
In the streets.
We was in the street, making mixtapes, trying to let people know we could play without having to say, just by being should be sufficient, but sometimes it doesn't. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we were talking about Darrell Wicks. So Darrell was instrumental in my entry into like, I like hip hop, I collected it, but I was, more of a typical dance music DJ. And so he really would challenge me because he's like, well, you have a lot of this, and I'm going to add to that. And so like, think about it. And he was instrumental in sort of just widening my palette, so to speak. And really my interest in doing more serious hip hop. And we would practice, and we had a group, and and he's done a documentary, so the World Wicks out there has done a documentary about that era.
Yeah.
And hopefully it will be done soon. He's had a couple of screenings, but I think that it will give people a little taste of what we experienced back then when it finally comes out.
It was an amazing time for house, for hip hop, just dance music in general, also Wicker Park, especially at that time, because it was just so, I don't know, ready for everything in that moment, and so accepting, and it was a really, really great time.
Yeah.
But there's also people who are having their great time experiences right now. But again, I think that informs how I view music, because I'm still not jaded. I'm just a veteran. So I try to be open-minded as possible, because it still brings me so much joy. So I try to keep that in front of mind.
I can tell.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was watching you, so Heather performed the other day at Daily Plaza. Daily Plaza?
Yeah.
Yes, Daily Plaza, as part of the house music, one of the house music 40 events. This one was launching, I don't know, just another launch of house music 40.
There's so many, and I think you can't really, I think it's going to be ongoing all year, and I think it also lets us know that it's something that really needs to be, perhaps in following years, perhaps a yearly event, to really recognize that this is a highly influential genre that finds itself right alongside jazz and blues, part of the city, gospel.
Right.
These are major global influences that we should all really celebrate.
Yeah, and that came from here. And so, listen, I had a couple of folks hit me up, so I want to just address something real quick. Several people are like, especially people who are older, saying, house music 40, I don't understand house music 40, because when I was a teenager, we were calling it house music, and it was before 1984, so what are you talking about? Here's my explanation, and I'm doing this based on my experience, my many interviews, and all the books that I've read. There's not a lot on sort of the trajectory of that term. So I want to put it out there. House music was music that was played at the warehouse. It was also a term that other people used for other reasons. However, that term was sort of, I would say, solidified, if you will, at imports, etc. This is what I have read and from what I kind of remember, where there was a section called warehouse music. And when the warehouse was closed, warehouse music didn't make sense to new buyers, and so they called it house music. So that's a story that feels consistent with my memory and also with all of that I've read. So the house music term was out before there was a canon of records that were created by DJs and producers in Chicago that became the house music canon, the house music genre. Well, I would say canon, but the genre is kind of inclusive of that culture, that terminology, what have you. So you can say, yes, I was listening to house music before 1984, before Jesse and Chippy and others, created actual physical records. That was part of a culture, not part of a canon. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so that's, you can call it house music, and all that stuff from before 84 has been grandfathered in. There were tracks that were created before 1984, but they were not physical releases, they were not records. And those were also considered house music sort of once the genre was established. Songs like Your Love and Dr. Derelict songs, etc. So that's it. That's the explanation. That's it. Okay? No more questions. No, I'm just kidding. You can ask questions. All right, so let me, I digress, so let me get back to the point. So 1990s, we're moving through the 90s.
Sure.
And then we hit upon a very famous Chicago group called Super Jam.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us the story of Super Jam. Oh, we got a cheering section.
All right.
In the back.
Get a groupie over here.
So in let me get on my wheel and tell you my story. So in the year of our Lord in 1997, myself, Colette, Dehoda, we all got together and said, hey, we should really come together about building a collective because we just wanted to mirror what the fellows were doing. So it was just like, just throw parties, put your people on, which we were our people. And so we put together one of the first parties, which was with Cosmo from New York, the aforementioned 3 or 2, and then Darlene would join us later. She actually asked Colette, because I was touring quite a bit. This was like, I was living my Europe era. So I was going to Europe quite a bit, touring the States quite a bit. So shout out to myself. I was working really hard at that time.
H is for hustle.
H is for hustle, even then. So I was like, at that time, Colette was like, yo, Darlene asked to be down. I was like, sure, no problem, all good. So we threw our first party with Cosmo, myself, Colette, Shannon, and Darlene at Buddha Lounge. And so that was our first Super Jane party, and then we were kind of trying to do them through the city. And our focus was to promote women DJs without having to say, this is a female party, quote unquote, even though you got it from the Super and the Jane. Being an extraordinary lady, hence Super Jane being related to how people refer to women. So Super Jane thusly was born. And so this was also an impetus to kind of like get Colette and Shannon out there playing because they're kind of nervous about it or that kind of thing. So it was me saying, you should really just start playing as well. So it was really a group effort. So that's kind of how it started, like literally I think at Colette's kitchen table, the 3 of us, and then Darlene asked to join us, and then we did one tour. I think it was 99, 2000, that was sponsored by Camel, when cigarette companies were still sponsoring stuff like that, which is crazy to think of now. And so we toured the US for a full year. We were able to go, I think New York and Miami, a couple major market stuff, and then that was kind of it. We kind of just did our thing, but what was cool is that retrospectively, everywhere that we would go, people would say, you were the first woman that I ever saw play. And I'm sure that happened to you as you progressed. It's like women would say, oh, you were the first for me. There's a lot of firsts and touchstones for different people. So everyone, I think, has had those experiences. And then we got some cool press at the time because we were, I guess, technically the first collective of the time. So I think we had some cool features and accelerator and spin and stuff like that, which was awesome. Interviews, etc. But I think with that, we kind of like set a tone of sisterhood, of community, of just really trying to, a support system. So if we had questions for each other, that kind of thing. And then the number of female DJs was really small at the time because, again, DJ culture was really small. So any other woman that you knew as a DJ, you knew them, regardless of the music that they were playing. So if it was like break beats or techno or whatever, you knew other women out there producing, DJing, etc. Because again, the community was so small. And then we kind of, Colette and I did a couple of mix CDs. We worked together on projects and subsequent tours. Then we come together for, anniversary events and stuff like that. And then I think what's cool is that people really love what we represent. And I think that's a really cool thing to think about, that what we've done for hopefully for women, just being inspired and by, just being, and not necessarily saying we're women doing it. We're just literally DJs and producers who happen to be women.
Yes.
And that's really what it should be about, because I don't think everyone, it's just this weird, strange subcategory where we're still, I think because humans by default need to find ways to how to categorize. So it's like, who's your favorite DJ? Okay, this guy, whatever. And then you get this other category of like, who's your favorite female DJ? And that, oh my gosh, I just want
I know, listen.
drives me bananas when I hear that.
And I love everyone who's watching this show and my friends. But I will say this, that question is a little bit, I don't know, I think we gotta rethink that question, okay?
It's super old. It doesn't make any sense, again, because of the sheer number of people who are doing this.
Yeah.
It really, regardless of gender
I agree.
classification, exactly, it goes beyond it at this point.
Here's where I'll go one step further. Imagine if there's a poll on Facebook and someone asks you, who's your favorite black house music DJ? You know, or who's your favorite Asian house music? It's kind of like that. Like, you know, you might dare say, who's your favorite male DJ? You know,
I don't see that.
no one's. I think I saw Sundance do it for the first time
Oh,
the
yeah.
other day, and I was like, "You go, girl!"
Right?
Because
Let 'em know.
people don't ask that question, but there's constant polls about
Yeah,
who's your favorite female, or tag a female, and
right. Yeah.
I mean, unless I don't know. I don't see it as very different. You know,
Yeah.
I think you could say that for basketball.
Yeah.
Because they are decidedly different games. You know, I mean, there's different ways that people play, and women
Correct.
play one way and men play another way.
Yeah.
I don't know that music falls into that category.
But then people will say, well, women just do it differently. There's a subtlety, or, you know, not as aggressive or whatever. But then again, as DJing and the art form and the approach to the art has changed, again, it's leveled it out.
I think so.
So when you hear someone play, you're not thinking, oh, I bet you that's a female playing right now. It's just really about skill set. But we're coming from the school of like being in a, dare I say, male-dominated space and having to make people forget that we are female in a weird way. So it's like, yeah, you know I'm here, but at the same time, you should really be judging me on my skill, and my gender should always be secondary.
I completely agree. I agree. We could talk all day about this one.
Amen.
So there are so many other things that we want to discuss with Heather. Lauren, what happened to our time?
We started late.
No, we didn't start that late.
Hey, Jeff Posen has a question. He says, "Tell us about MSI with Duro."
Jeff
Payson?
Jeff Payson.
Payson,
What's that, Jeff?
Hey, Jeff. So Jeff Payson, beautiful person, just asked us a question about MSI. MSI was the Museum of Science and Industry, which was a place that I worked part-time as a DJing when I was a teenager. DJing, working at part-time at the museum, going to school real part-time. And I met Duro. We were both tour guides. We give people tours of the coal mine and submarine and what have you. And it was like another high school experience because we were all just kids trying to make a living. But yes, there's a lot. The museum is a whole nother story. Like, trust me, there's all kinds of crazy things that went down there. Behind closed doors, we'll put it that way. But back to my beautiful guest, Heather. So you have done a lot of production. You've done touring. You talked a little bit about that. I really do want to have a part two. I know.
Sure.
I know. I'm pressing my luck.
Yeah.
I get it because she's like, look, I'm here today. You know, get it done.
Oh, no, it'll be my pleasure to come back, for sure.
She's like, you guys, one time. So, but you've been to Johannesburg. You've been to Europe. You talked about that. Like, tell me we can't get into all of it. What's your favorite part or favorite memory about doing that?
Of traveling in general?
Traveling and DJing.
You know what? To be honest, it's provided me such an opportunity to see the world, to get paid for it. Sometimes not so much, but it's provided a ticket to literally play music, which is just wild considering like coming from the places I've been, and again, not necessarily having this as a career path, but feeding said baby, and the baby got bigger and it's more responsive. I'm like, cool. So I keep the good stuff I keep putting into it, the equity I keep putting in, I've gotten great things back from it. So what I really take away from it is hopefully my ability to empathize with other people. Just that notion of hearing and seeing other perspectives. It's really made me the person I am, where I'm able to hopefully be patient, understanding, empathetic, if I said that already. And just literally see the world on someone else's dime by playing music, which is still wild, and people are still doing that now. And I still tour, but I ate up a lot of miles in my 20s and 30s because I was just like, I had the time, the freedom. But then with music, I've also been able to, it led me to my husband, and I've created a family. I'm able to make dreams come true by, facilitating this hobby, but it's really not a hobby. Once again, the happy accident, but it's really the path that I didn't really know I was gonna be on, and I'm here, and I don't know. There's really nothing else I want to do. I mean, I could, I guess. I could deliver mail and still do this. Happy USPS. What's up? So so it's afforded me that freedom and that joy, and that hopefully keeps me, open and happy. So,
That's great.
Yeah.
I love, that's a beautiful description, sort of describing music as a way towards empathy.
Yeah,
You know,
it really.
because it is a universal language.
Yeah, I mean, it's very a cliche, but it's absolutely true. It's like I've had so many experiences, as you mentioned, Johannesburg, where it was like my first time. It's a motherland trip. It's like it's like a touchstone, and seeing an all-black crowd, not in my city, but somewhere else, appreciating these beats that I'm playing, learning how to communicate, and having this call and response. It still informs how I play now. And that particular trip was in 98, 99. But I mean, like I said, I've been fortunate to literally be all over the world, and still able to do this. And I'm really fortunate, and I don't know how it would be if I were a DJ now, how I would be approaching it. I'm really fortunate to have experienced all this stuff up to this point.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm not, I don't know about you, but I feel like granted, I've been playing a long time, but I don't feel like I'm specifically from a certain era where I only play records from 89, 90. It's like, hopefully because of all of this experience, I can tap into that, but also be just as contemporary as anyone else.
I feel that 100%. In so many ways, I love the path because it gives you such a canon. There's so much to choose from.
Yeah.
And people appreciate that. But because of the way that music is produced now, and there's so much to choose from, there's so many ways to access it, you just have, I get lost in it.
Yeah, it's like, I think the number of tracks uploaded, regardless of genre, are like in the hundreds of thousands every day.
That's crazy.
So how do you discern what to pick, how to find it? And so that's why I think, again, coming from a certain era, you kind of just are able to get turned on by stuff randomly. You don't necessarily have to seek it out. It just kind of comes to you. That sounds really
I think it does.
presumptuous, but
well, I think it does. But I also think that you have a certain ear for what is you.
True, a signature sound. I think as you do as well.
Right. So you can have 1,000 things, and it's those 10 that are going to speak to you.
Absolutely.
That may not speak to another.
Right, and how
how
you present them exactly. So I always, when people ask me about how you stand out, I say, well, it's about finally coming into your own and creating the sound of, even if all these influences might kind of inform your approach.
Right.
But when you get to that point where you actually can have your own language, it really says so much about you. So that's all these DJs that have signature sounds, to me, are still playing, who are really part of my my canon of people that I look to for inspiration still. And those are the Mark Farinas and Miles Miedas and Diz's, Spencer Kinsey, Sneak, etc. And even though I felt like they were older than me, we were technically contemporaries, but I always felt like they were just so ahead of their time, and I can still listen to them and be inspired. But I'm also getting inspired by new people all the time, which is crazy awesome too, because there's so many great DJs now. Like Eric David's one of my favorites, Kid Enigma, just a new, but the third wave is here, and it's here faster, there's more of them, and they're really trying to make an impression, trying to like find their way too. And they always talk about those DJs too, but they are creating their scenes and
Yeah.
sounds now.
It's so important to do that. And, you know, to the folks, who say, you know, what, you have to let people in or get people on, and that's an important thing to
Absolutely.
mentor. But it's more important to find your own space and your own
Yeah.
lane, and you have, you know, you gotta do that. I think we had Rose Red,
Yeah.
a few weeks ago, and she, you know, she was so inspiring to me. She was like, no, you know, I have residency here, I do
Right.
this, I do
Yeah.
that, and I was just
She
like,
makes music,
yes,
yeah. And
that's how it happens.
and you know, because I saw and heard her, and I was like, she's doing so much on her own that I wanted her to play at Smart Bar with me.
Yes.
So she did. I have a night called Lake Effect. I do it a couple times a year, 3-4 times a year now. And I had her alongside Riva Starr and myself, and she was great. She
Yeah.
didn't mind opening, which is awesome, because that's kind of hard to do. You try to like make sure things are, people feel okay with it, because sometimes you're like, I realize you know what you're doing, but
Yeah.
the bigger picture is I want to get you in this space so that you
Yes.
become part of the fabric, so you're tapped to come back. And then she's coming back to play with Farina and Colette in a couple weeks.
That's wonderful.
So,
Yeah, no, she's great, but I think
Yes.
she's a great example of what we're saying. It's
Right.
like she's carving her own path, and
Yes.
that's attractive to people.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
like, cool. You're hustling. You're doing your own thing. You don't need me, but I'm going to
Yeah, support you.
support you. And this is one way I can do it. And if you're cool with it, cool.
Speaking of Smart Bar,
Yes.
so you have been there for a minute,
Good Lord.
as a resident DJ.
Yes.
The first Black woman to be a resident DJ there. I think I read that in
lean
your
into
bio.
that. Okay.
Who was that? Who else did it?
I guess it would be me then.
Would be
Okay. And you know, I started on Sunday night doing hip hop and Rare Brew and all that good stuff on Sundays.
Yeah.
And then I've just kind of been in there in the rotation,
Yeah.
doing shows and residency at the club and filling in different capacities and just being available because I like playing music.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I've been incredibly fortunate to have that as my home base.
yeah, it's great. I think Joe is one of my heroes.
Yes, absolutely. He's been a guardian angel for sure.
Oh, for sure. So yeah, Smart Bar, you got some stuff coming up at Smart Bar.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna be filling in for like doing an opening set for I think DJ Tennis.
Okay.
So I'm gonna open, which is kind of cool too because I like playing with different people, and so sometimes they ask me, "Hey, are you available? I think you'd be a good fit." I'm like, "Cool." I like the flexibility, and sometimes not necessarily at Smart Bar, but sometimes if I play at Prism, it's a different energy, or if I play for a Dirty Bird parties, that's a different energy, or EDC for those events. So I like being able to change things up for myself as well.
That's what's up. I'll
Yeah.
be there. I think I'm
Yeah.
gonna be there in Pride. Me and Beady Girl,
Oh,
someone else for I think the 30th. So that's when I get back from Germany. So yeah,
Nice.
I love playing there. It's
Yeah.
like sound systems matter. Lady D says that.
Yeah.
Sound systems matter.
Yes.
And Smart Bar has got it right.
Yes,
You know?
it
So
does.
thank you, Smart Bar, for doing what you're doing and making
That's
us
true.
so comfortable when
Yep.
we're there. And they're just so respectful. It's one of the best parts.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've burned through this hour. It happens quick. I want to talk about being a mom.
Yeah,
You know, you have a beautiful little boy.
I do. Thank you. Yeah, he's amazing, and he's going to be 12. He's 35 years old, but he is really. I'm absolutely, dare I say, blessed. Like #blessed, because I didn't know if I was going to even get married, and you don't have to be married to be a parent. No question about that. But I didn't know about that. Didn't even know. I wasn't sure about kids. All of a sudden, I guess I have a baby. And then next thing you know, I'm still able to do all this stuff. I remember DJing, being in, 7th month, like out there at Smart Bar was my last one before the baby came, that kind of thing. But he's been right there with me, playing cuts and hanging out. Yeah.
I love it.
Yes.
So he's into the music.
Yeah, he's like, he likes to go out, but not much. But then he knows what parties are. He does definitely have some favorites.
Yeah.
He knows what mom's friends do, and like seeing them, like, because Colette's coming to town. He's like, are we gonna go see Auntie Coco? I'm like, yeah, you know, that kind of stuff.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, that's sweet.
It's nice that your kid is into it. My kid is
Yes.
lukewarm.
Yeah.
She's-
I'm sure he's gonna grow out of it, but whatever, mom.
Yeah, well, no, I don't know. She's
Yeah.
never been into it. But
Oh, really? Okay.
We forced her to come to the studio a couple of times. She's been here.
Okay.
But I caught her smiling. So when I did the thing at Millennium Park on Sunday, she was
That's
in the
a big
audience with my
deal.
wife and she was smiling.
Aw.
I was like, I think she likes this.
It was super fun. It was super fun. I was keeping my eye on her as
Yeah.
well. I was hugging all of them. We were all very excited.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's good.
That's the best.
Nice to have kids.
Yes.
All right, so listen, I'm gonna let you go. There's so much more I'd love to talk to you about, especially around your production. I'm just
Yes.
really inspired by all that you've done over the years. I
Oh,
always
thanks so
followed
much.
you. I'm like,
Oh, I appreciate
look at her
it.
go. I always, kind of remember when we met and you were so much, you're younger than me, so.
Yeah.
It's a baby and look at her go.
Look at,
So look at you
look at
go.
you. And like I said, those turntables, I'm telling you, those belt-driven
She's funny.
joints like changed my life.
Well,
So thank you so much for that.
anytime. I'm sure I can do better these days.
No doubt.
So listen, you've been listening to WNUR 89.3 Evanston, Chicago, FM HD1. I get that all mixed up. But I'm not mixed up about really DJ's Heather's beauty and talent
Oh my
and
gosh.
graciousness
You're
to
too
be here. And I'm a fan. I'm a super fan. I know that Lauren is a super fan. And we were so excited that you accepted. So thank you for coming down.
An absolute pleasure, and I'm so glad I could join you tonight.
Yeah.
This has been fantastic.
Well,
Let's do part two.
We'll do a part two.
Let
We'll
your-
give you some space so that you,
Yes, you figure it out.
you feel like we've had enough time lapse.
Sounds good.
All right.
All
Take
right.
care, everybody.
Peace, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Vintage House Show podcast. Please subscribe and share, and check us out live, WNUR 89.3 FM, Wednesdays at 10 o'clock.